I blame Joe Rogan for the rise of Andrew Schulz. I don't think
Right.
he would have risen had not, because Joe Rogan all of a sudden started like bringing him on his show and like hyping him up or whatever. And I mean, yeah, maybe it's his buddy. He thinks it's funny, whatever. But I saw like like a quick rise in his career after that Joe Rogan stamp. Um,
Right.
that's not to say that Andrew Schulz doesn't deserve to have space in the comedy world. He does. He's still funny. He's a comedian, but I do think that he's pushed that like mean comedy a little bit too far.
Hmm.
And I remember the second point that I was gonna about what was said. It's about Black women. Not only the whole like you have to protect yourself about against Black women, um, but also the whole like that they're not dateable, right?
Right.
Because of this.
Yeah, I don't understand
That
that.
was also another thing.
Right,
Um,
right. And again, so this is like the thing. I don't know where he grew up. I don't know how he grew up. But when you grow up with a TV version of Black women, and then you go to Van Cortlandt Park and Black wives are with their Black husbands sitting there barbecuing and picnicking while the men were all playing paddleball, and I know their wife and kids for 4 years, that becomes absurd to a person who's actually in the mix with people of different ethnic. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not bragging like, oh, look at me. I'm so diverse, but I grew up in a city. Now I don't live. I mean, I play at Van Cortlandt Park. This isn't even Manhattan, where everyone in the world. This is under the elevated train trestle. This is, a rougher part of New York City, and you
mhm.
see these women who are like family women who are raising their children with their husbands and they're married for 30 years. So Andrew Schultz's perception of a Black woman just becomes stupid to me. But let me ask you a question. Now he's with Shits and Giggles. What are their names?
Shits and gigs or something
Shits.
like
I
that.
would never call myself Shits. I mean, what a fucking dumb name. But they seem really likable. They seem like they're kind of like with those accents and they're
Right.
funny.
Very likable. Mhm.
So what happens when I'm the snarky white comedian and I'm on with the two lovable Black guys and we're like ga 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 ga? Do I get carried away because I feel like, hey, I'm with my boys and like all of a sudden I feel like I have some kind of extra cred to go over the line? Is he reacting to their comfortability with and the left?
You're very perceptive because I think another thing that put a battery in Andrew Schultz's back is also his like affiliation with Charlamagne the God, because
Right.
I think that sort of made him, because Charlamagne the God in the Black community, he has a certain status, right?
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
almost like if you're co-signed by Charlamagne the God, you're okay with us Black people. That's kind
Right.
of, he's one of those, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's also something that he's maybe using a little bit. Um, Unfortunately, he's like kind of pushing the envelope a little bit on that, because it's one thing to be like, I mean, you and I, right? I'm Black, you're white, whatever. I mean, we joke around and we talk about race. I mean, I make white jokes, you make Black jokes, or whatever, right? But there's still like a limit, you know what I mean?
Well, there's got to be
Um,
respect, and I'm
there's got
not
to be
gonna
respect. There's got
and
to be
I'm
respect.
not and I'm not gonna based on you and my mentor Roberto Sharp. I'm not
Yeah.
going to go on somebody's podcast and start shit talking about Black people. Oh well, I know Sarah and Roberto. I can do this. That's
Right.
like so. That's kind of. But again, the likable and non-likable thing. Now, the thing that's interesting is I find Joe Rogan likable, so I'm
Yeah.
almost surprised that he gets on with Andrew Schultz the way he
I
does.
am too, because for me, Joe Rogan, he's a special breed.
He's an incredible.
Yeah,
He's
I mean, I feel like when I see him interact with people, he feels he feels very genuine, and I'm not surprised by his huge success. He
yeah,
feels like a good person, like he feels like someone that um does the right thing. Does
yep,
that make sense?
yeah. No, he
And
I
that's
mean,
why I actually like Joe Rogan's comedy, because I mean, he says like some like offensive things here and there, whatever, right? But
did
for
you
the
see his
most
latest one? Oh my god.
I did. I think he's really funny, and for the most part, I think that his jokes are like well thought out. Like he takes you somewhere, right?
Yeah,
I don't
yeah.
really think that Andrew Schultz takes you somewhere. He's just mean. And here's another thing. Okay, I love Theo Von, and you do too, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I do want to pose this question, because having
Would you smash Joe Rogan?
the Theo Von thing before we, I, he does also sort of like race bait here and there. You know what I mean? He's always
Mm-hmm.
kind of asking his Black friends, like, oh, like he just asks a lot of like questions as though, like he doesn't know anything about Black people and like whatever. But he does it in a way that's like, he's not like attacking or, being hateful or being mean. Like he asks questions out of like pure curiosity. Just like the other day when you asked me, like, what does it mean to be ashy? You're just curious. Like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? You're not using that information to then later on go and say that, Black people are ashy. Huh?
Oh
You know what I
God.
mean?
I'm not,
And that's what Andrew Schulz does. It's like he like got in the Black community, he learned all these things, and now he thinks he knows it, like stuff about the Black community, so that he can like regurgitate back out into the
yeah.
world.
Yeah. That. Well, and again, that's just not likable. It's funny.
What's the saying? Hate begets hate or whatever, right?
Hate begets hate.
He put so much hate out there. Like we don't even really talk about people like this. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
he's getting this treatment in return because like you want to talk about, and here's another thing that I would like to add. So there's this like idea of like what Black people or like Black women, right, are like, right? And then when you meet someone who's not like that, and you're like, oh well, you're not Black. And I get that a lot, right? Where people are like, oh, you're not Black. You're
What
not
did
Black.
somebody say on one of our comments? I saw a
I am
comment.
Black. I'm 100% African. How about that? Right. But then you're going to be like, oh, but your hair looks like this, or your features, or you talk like this, or da-da, so you can't be Black. No, I am 100% Black. Period. You
Mm-hmm.
know? Um, but it just goes to the whole like, this is what Black is. And, we're going to lump everyone together. And that's what it is. You know what I'm saying? Like some of the sweetest, like most, like, smartest, submissive, whatever guys like these days, women that I've met have been both Black or white, whatever. It hasn't like boiled down to race. That's what I'm saying,
Mm-hmm. Well, can you imagine? Can you just imagine that somebody would be like, well, Eric is white, and therefore this is his personality. This is the way he dates. This is what he wears. That is like insane. But yeah, so Andrew Schulz is kind of doing it back. Andrew Schulz just doesn't give me. As a matter of fact, and he laughs at his own jokes a lot, which is okay sometimes.
Yeah.
But he's like he's signaling where the punchline is. It's like, bro, if you're that funny, we don't need you to tell us where to laugh.
And I can even tell that people find him annoying. Even his friends, I can tell they like find him annoying. But it's almost like, wait, because he got the Joe Rogan stamp of approval, like now we're all nice to him, or I don't know, but like I can tell, I can really, if you watch like him interview people, like people laugh along with him and everything, but he's not likable. He's not
No,
likable.
I didn't like him. The first time I really watched him do comedy was at the Tom Brady roast, and I was not super impressed. I mean, I thought he was funny, but obnoxious for sure.
Mm-hmm. I did think he had like some funny moments in his special. He put out a special, I think, on YouTube a few years ago, like on his own.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it had like funny moments. Listen, I will give credit where credit is due. I'm not saying he's never funny. He has funny moments, but for
Mm-hmm.
the most part, it's mean humor. And I think he's crossed the line now, and now he's also like doubling down. He's not apologizing after causing all this outrage, which is also to me adds to his unlikability, because it's one thing to stand your ground when it's like, listen, I stand by what I did or said, but in this case, what you're standing by, stereotyping and hurting a bunch of Black women and being, I mean, I don't know, because it wasn't even funny. It wasn't even like real humor. You know what I mean?
Well,
It was just really like mean.
yeah, I don't know. I wonder what Charlamagne the God, who annoys me and I love, and he annoys me. He's again, I reserve the right to dislike Charlamagne the God, even though he's Black. I'm not a signaler. Like sometimes he just like his politics. He's got his head up his backside sometimes, but super smart, super entertaining. And I wonder what he thinks of what was said. But then you got to be careful with that too, because there was a clip of Joe Rogan using the N-word once, and the context, it was like a thing, and the clip was isolated and was put out, and it was embarrassing, I'm sure, for Joe Rogan. But then The Rock puts out a statement like, I'm disappointed in Joe Rogan, look at me. And then I see a picture of him telling jokes going, oh, ching chong bing bong. And I'm like, okay, my children are half Asian. Why do you get to do that, you racist? Like, in other words, like, if you know you're a racist or tell racist style jokes, The Rock, you need to shut before you throw Joe Rogan under the bus. And you can say it's an easier target and it's not as sensitive, whatever. But if you're doing it yourself, don't throw stones. It's just the whole thing is chaos. But I
Yeah.
think, Bill Burr's wife is African American, but I think likable people can get away with more. I think we all want. I think a lot of people just find Andrew Schulz unlikable, so now they're like, yeah, pounce, pounce.